Welcome to The Counselor, Beyond Conventional Defense.
Hello and welcome to Counselor, Beyond Conventional Defense, the podcast that challenges the traditional approach to criminal defense and takes a deeper look at how the justice system can evolve with attorney William Pernik, a trailblazer in criminal defense whose approach is anything but conventional. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're going to introduce you to the idea of the Counselor show and how William Pernik's approach is not conventional. William, it's so great to have you here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kevin. It's a pleasure. Thank you for helping us launch this project.
Absolutely. I'm excited to learn about you and this idea. So can you share a little bit about your background and what inspired you to start working with clients involved in the legal system?
Sure. You know, Kevin, I was born and raised in a small town in Soviet Ukraine, and I immigrated to the United States as a child. I was a teenager, 15 years old, and I came here in mid-90s with my family. I grew up in a family of public school teachers, so service to others was always a priority in my family home. Coming to this country exposed me to the challenges that immigrants face, challenges that mirror those of many of my clients. I've always felt grateful for the opportunities that I found here, and I really wanted to give back to my country, to my community, and to those who were less fortunate than I was. Initially, to me, that meant military service, but ultimately I found my calling working in the legal field, in particular with indigent defendants, which is where I started. My educational background is that I initially wanted to be a psychologist. I actually was exposed to a wonderful introduction to a psychology course in high school that just really lit up my interest in the field. And so I applied and was accepted to study psychology and history in UC Davis, thinking I was going to pursue a degree perhaps in clinical psychology. Ultimately, I ended up going to law school in University of San Francisco, which has a very strong focus on criminal law and social justice. I ended up meeting incredible people, many of whom remain in my life today, and it really inspired me to pursue a career in the field of indigent defense. I started out very briefly working for a high-end private firm, but after that, I worked in Tulare County Public Defender's Office. I worked in Monterey County Public Defender's Office and spent almost the first half of my career in public defense before I opened my own practice. I focus on building uniquely personal relationships with my clients. And one of the things that I think is unusual about me is I really try to use my own life experiences, both good and bad, to guide and support my clients. When something happens to me, I try to make something positive come out of it. And even if I cannot use it in my own life, I try to at least have it inspire me to do something, to do better for a client that I'm working with or somebody I encounter in our profession.
That's really cool. And based on all of that, what's motivating you to launch this podcast? What do you hope listeners will take away from it?
This podcast was inspired both by my professional journey and also by personal experiences that I've had. Most recently, I lost a close friend of mine, someone I grew up with in San Francisco, who had a legal encounter similar to many of my clients and later died from an overdose. I couldn't help him at the time because I had lost contact with him for a while due to my work and my family, his family. But I really feel like I could have, and that weighed really heavily on me. I really want people to be able to get help, and I want people to learn about ways to get help before it is too late. I have felt really disheartened that another legal professional who my friend contacted, who apparently didn't share my vision and my approach, but perhaps had a chance to intervene and make a difference, did not. And maybe a needless death could have been prevented. Part of my motivation is to help lawyers realize that we can play an incredible role in alleviating the pain and suffering of other people and not just focus on their wallets. I want my listeners to know they're not alone, that change is possible, and I want legal professionals to know that we can help, we can really help, and we have a responsibility to truly help. In addition, as a firm, we have a YouTube channel that recently got its first 1 million views. And I got to be honest, I found it really empowering to have a platform and an audience for me and for my team to share our thoughts with and to frankly exchange our ideas and opinions. And I really wanted to apply it outside of our firm's main channel to share my personal passion and my vision for the practice of criminal law in a new and hopefully better way.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your unique vision for legal defense. How do you go beyond the conventional approach?
My vision is that legal defense should be complete and it should be client centered, far beyond attacking the law or challenging the facts of any given case. I've now done criminal defense for almost 20 years, and I've won trials on very serious charges of murder, rape, assault, just about anything else you can come up with. But after years of doing this work, I've come to realize that being a lawyer is not just about winning cases or negotiating great deals. It's about understanding the person behind the case, their struggles, and their potential for change. I really believe that lawyers have a duty to look beyond the surface of the allegations that our clients face and to address the root causes of our clients' legal troubles, whether that's addiction, trauma, or some sort of systemic barriers. And so to me, true advocacy means helping clients heal and rebuild and not just avoid punishment. And one doesn't have to come at the expense of the other.
So you have a three-step approach. Can you go over what that is and how it shapes your work with your clients?
Absolutely. So, as a firm, we have developed a three-step method for handling cases by going beyond the legal issues that they present or the factual challenges that we would bring. Normally, in a conventional setting, one of the first things that an attorney will do is look for legal reasons to attack the government's case. Are we dealing with a situation where our client was searched illegally, stopped illegally, questioned illegally? Is there some procedural way to defeat the allegations in this case? Is there a motion that can be filed? Anything that could either chisel away at the government's case or destroy the government's case entirely using rule of criminal procedure, constitutional law, or something along those lines. That would be the first thing that any good lawyer will look at. Separate from legal challenges, there are also factual defenses. Sometimes we might be dealing with a case where we're dealing with somebody who is not the right person. Maybe this is a case of mistaken identity, a case of self-defense, a case of necessity, a case of duress. And so those are factual defenses, and we investigate those by using private investigators, by looking at the facts that the government has, figuring out why the government's facts are wrong. Perhaps we argue over some alternative facts that government failed to uncover, or we agree on a basic set of facts but don't agree about their meaning. And so the issue is, how do we interpret the facts that we have? So dealing with the law and dealing with the facts, that's the province of conventional criminal defense. And that's what I grew up on. This is what I've done for almost 20 years. That's how I've tried more than 70, 75 cases to jury verdict with really high rates of success. But there are many more instances where conventional defenses just do not get you the results that you need. And even if you are successful, the fix that they offer is short-lived. So what I have developed here at the firm and what we have trained every single person at the firm to do is to apply the following three steps. First, we try to understand the reasons behind our clients' alleged behavior. We really listen to our clients, their stories, their backgrounds, and what brought them to this point. So the first step is all about the power of asking why. Why is this person here? What happened to them? We understand what the allegations are, but what's really going on? What's the root cause of the problem that's causing this person to seek our help? Once we ask that question, we use the information that we receive in order to diagnose the problem and connect our clients where appropriate to resources. Once I understand what the underlying issue is, I will develop a solution to this problem. Where necessary, I'm going to connect my client to the right support, whether that's therapy, addiction treatment, or some community resources. It could be couples therapy in a domestic violence case. It could be parenting classes in a child endangerment or child abuse case. It could be training with an appropriate expert or a gun safety instructor in a case where you're dealing with a person who purchased the weapon but doesn't know how to lawfully transport it, store it, or carry it. So that's the second step. And then the third step is something that I call targeted solution advocacy. And what that means is that once I know what the real issue is behind the case and I have a proper solution in hand, I engage and I instruct my team to engage in advocating for that solution in a very targeted and specific way. That's where we fight hard to obtain the necessary result, but one that incorporates these proposed solutions, whether it's through some form of diversion or alternative to a criminal process, a negotiated plea bargain, or a sentencing consideration that we otherwise wouldn't be able to obtain. Each and every time where I try to obtain a better outcome from the court or my opponents, I find that providing an explanation and a reason why this client deserves this particular break, as opposed to everyone else who does not get these results, because after all, our criminal justice system, if you can imagine, is basically a machine that has to churn out thousands and thousands of criminal cases a year. And so it has to apply standard procedures, standard numbers, standard protocols, standard deals in order to make the cases flow. And so what I want to do is I want to show that my clients are different, that they deserve a different consideration, that they deserve an unusual outcome. And I need to provide a reason why. And that's what my approach is so good at getting at. And this is why we tend to get far, far better legal outcomes. So this approach to me is all about going beyond the courtroom. It's about helping identify problems, solve problems, helping people break the cycles, finding hope, and building better lives. And hopefully, in the process, we're helping to fix the person and not just resolve their case whenever we can.
That's really interesting. And you talked about how you really get to know your clients on a personal level. Through that experience, what are some of the most common underlying issues that you find lead people to get into legal trouble?
We know statistically that 50 to 75% of all people in criminal justice system will have some sort of substance abuse or mental health issues.
Right.
Our system suffers with a big problem, and the problem lies in fundamental misallocation of resources. We know that 50 to 75% of all people in our courts need drug counseling, mental health treatment, other forms of support and therapy, but the system is not designed to provide it to this many people. And so even though we have treatment courts for some individuals, we're just not applying these resources and we're not providing these resources on the necessary scale. So the clients that I work, many of them are dealing with challenges like addiction, trauma, or mental health issues, oftentimes compounded by the stress and difficulty of being an immigrant, sometimes undocumented immigrant, which makes it very hard to tap into existing services for fear that exist in an undocumented immigrant community, or
Sure.
people who are just outsiders. I really try to listen carefully to my clients' stories. And what I really want to do and what I strive to do is to look for patterns that might hold clues, that might point to deeper issues. And I try to draw on my own background. I try to draw on my experience, on vast data that I've collected after working with tens of thousands of people over the years, and using empathy and understanding to connect and to help.
I know that due to court pressures, people, clients cannot be fully honest, in those in certain situations. Is that a challenge for you in trying to do this new method, this different idea of defense, if they're not fully honest?
I wouldn't say that people withholding some information from their lawyers, from judges or social workers is really that unique. I think that the reality is that when people are facing legal trouble, they often feel that they have to present themselves in the best possible light in
Mhm.
order to avoid negative consequences. And so, what that could mean is minimizing substance use, minimizing symptoms of mental health problems, or denying it altogether. That's actually a clue sometimes that the person is mentally ill, especially when you have information from everybody else that clearly points to obvious symptomology and obvious issues that this person is experiencing. Sometimes people withhold information out of fear, and it's not always about deception or lying per se. Oftentimes, it's about self protection or fear of repercussion, especially for people who have been misunderstood, misjudged, have not been helped in a past, or just faced a ton of hardship or discrimination. And that makes it hard to give these folks the support they really need. So I try to address this by being upfront about what I can and can't do for folks, by assuring people that anything they share with me is 100% confidential. And I always make it a point to tell people, I'm not here to judge you. I'm just here to help. And usually the way I do it, usually the way I communicate with folks, I really try to build a relationship from the beginning. I use motivational interviewing to create safe space for honesty. And I emphasize that real progress for me can only happen when we're working with the full picture. And so I really stress to people that if I don't have all of the facts of your case, if I don't know everything about your background, it's going to make it hard for me to fully diagnose the situation and provide you with the best possible legal advice. So you have an opportunity in this confidential, non-judgmental setting to really open up and really share with me the problems that perhaps you didn't talk to your significant others about, your parents about, your probation officer about, what's really going on here. And so I try to draw on my experience. I try to draw on my own experience as an immigrant. I try to draw on my experiences as someone who also had similar problems to some of the problems my clients face, maybe not to the same extent, but I know what it's like to have a loss. I know what it's like to have a disappointment. I know what it's like to not get something that you really work hard to get. And so I try to use the experiences that I have to relate to my clients and build the trust needed for honesty and for growth, and to communicate to them the right way to analyze and respond to a situation, as opposed to the impulsive way, the wrong way of just saying, the game is rigged, therefore I don't want to play it at all. The system is unfair. Why should I even bother participate in treatment or probation? And I try to explain that there is a better way. Let me show you. Let me teach you. Just trust me. Give me a little bit of time. Let's see if we can help. You don't want to be in this forever. Let's find a better way to grow. Let's find a way to put this behind you, to open a new chapter in your life. And that's what I like to do.
Yeah, it's a lot easier in a lot of situations to just kind of succumb to the addiction rather than try to fight it and be rise above it and all that. So that's a hard thing to get across for people who might have loved ones, family members who need support when facing legal or addiction challenges. What advice do you give them?
I think specifically for the loved ones and the family members, it's really important to support. It's really important to continue to be there for the person, but to do it in a healthy way. You don't want to fully enable and be completely blind to the impact that your own behavior is causing. So I always encourage people to provide support, to be there the way that I would be for somebody that I care about, but to do it in a way that also sets some healthy boundaries, to also educate oneself about addiction and the legal process so you can be a more effective support person, a more effective ally, a more effective partner for your loved one going through a case, going through recovery, going through mental health treatment. And as someone who's seen both sides, personally and professionally, I really know how important family support can be. I think you always need to have a plan. And then you need to have a backup plan just in case your initial plan goes wrong, such as when you get your loved one out of custody. You spend the lost money that you had after paying a lawyer. Now you paid a bail bondsman. You get them out. You think they're going to go into treatment, and they don't. And you really need to fall back on everything that you've learned, and you need to prepare in advance what happens if something doesn't go right. And you need to think through these things in advance. You want to have a good lawyer you can discuss it with. And I also talk on this podcast about different types of lawyers, different philosophies that lawyers have, and how we want the right lawyers to be connected with the right clients. Because if there is a misunderstanding or misalignment between the kind of lawyer that a person needs and the kind of lawyer they're dealing with, that's not going to lead to good results. And it certainly is not going to work with the type of method that I'm trying to teach others.
So what message do you most hope to share with your audience through this podcast, both people in trouble as well as fellow legal representatives?
I think what it comes down to for me, Kevin, is that it's never too late to change. And I truly believe that everyone deserves a second chance. I don't believe that people should be defined by the worst moments of their lives. I really feel that growth and recovery are possible, even in the face of legal challenges. I always try to inspire people to rewrite their story, to take control over the narrative, and to use this moment, this opportunity for change. Just because something negative happened to you in your life does not mean that that has to be who you are forever. You can make a change. You can make a comeback. you can make it a turning point and you can make something positive come out of a negative situation. For example, just because you got arrested for a charge of domestic violence after you have been using drugs or alcohol, after your relationship had fallen apart, does not mean that you will forever never have a family. Instead, you can try and understand, why am I using alcohol or drugs? What went wrong in my relationship? How can I learn to be a better partner, a better spouse, a better parent? You can apply all of these tools, and sometimes you can fix what has been broken, or you can do better in the future with the next relationship that you're in, with drugs and alcohol, with mental illness. All of these things can be addressed. There are a lot of therapies, there are a lot of treatments. And if we truly understand what's causing a problem for our client, what's causing the pain, what's causing the suffering, what's causing them to come into contact with law enforcement, we can address these root causes and put people on a path of success. And so, for my fellow legal professionals, what I want to stress is that we have a real opportunity here, and I would say a moral and legal responsibility to make a difference in people's lives, and not just in their legal outcomes, but in their overall well-being.
Looking back, is there a particular client or story that stands out as especially meaningful to you?
There are many, hundreds of stories, but one that stands out is a client who fairly recently overcame really significant obstacles to rebuild her life and reconnect with her family. It's a client whose journey through recovery really reminds me of the kind of things that my friends struggle with that I really wish I was able to help him with. And this is a person we're going to meet and open up our season with. That's my former client, Adina. She's going to come and meet with us in our next two episodes and is going to share her incredible story of recovery, transformation, and also help us understand how things happen from the perspective of an addict, from a perspective of a person who had a lot of trauma in a background. And so while Adina and I will be talking about her legal journey and her personal journey, we're also going to ask her to help us understand things from the perspective of a client. And I think that's really motivational and really inspiring. She has inspired me, and she reminds me of my own journey of people around me, and the importance of second chances in life.
Oh, that's great. I'm looking forward to hearing her story. It sounds incredible. So what kind of guests or topics should we expect to see on the show?
All right. So this is a legal podcast, so we're going to have to talk a little bit about the law. Obviously, I'm going to talk about my vision. We're going to interview a mix of professionals. We're going to have people with lived experiences, and we're going to have advocates. I will feature guests who stand out to me as being inspirational or motivational, and I choose people who can offer some unique insights or practical advice, or have a particularly touching life story that I believe will resonate with my audience, especially those who can understand the challenges of going through the legal system, experiencing discrimination, experiencing injustice, or fighting a legal case while also suffering from an underlying mental health or substance abuse issue. And yes, because this is a legal podcast, I will also show how my vision works in a practical setting. I'm going to answer questions about legal topics and questions of interest to our hosts and our audience.
Where can people find the podcast and connect with you or your work?
You're going to be able to find my podcast on all major platforms, and you can connect with me through my website or social media. I'm always happy to answer questions or point people towards helpful resources. I understand that not everyone can afford to hire someone like me or work with some of the experts we're going to interview on the show. So we're really hoping to stir up some interest, to produce some useful content, and hopefully it's going to help folks find help if they need help, or find a place where they can learn more about it. We also have a YouTube channel for my firm. It's called Stay Out of Trouble Tuesday. My friend and partner Roland came up with that name because he said everybody always starts everything on Monday. So we called it Stay Out of Trouble Tuesday. And we have a social media presence on all major social media outlets. So please click like, subscribe to this podcast, and support our ongoing work. And welcome to the family. Welcome to our community.
Well, William, I'm excited. I think this is a really groundbreaking idea, and I'm very excited to hear Adina's story and more about your story and all the things that come with it. Thank you for tuning in to Counselor Beyond Conventional Defense with attorney William Pernik. Once again, if you want to connect with William and his team, as he described, they've got the YouTube channel. They're on all the social media channels. And you can also go to perniklaw.com and like our videos, subscribe to the channel. We got a ton of great stuff coming your way, actually. William, always great talking to you. I'm excited to see where this show goes.
It's my pleasure. I can't wait. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.